Hello and welcome to the Peter Diagnos podcast. Today I'm going to be speaking about identity crisis and ego deaths during spiritual awakening. So it's difficult because as starseed psychics, intuitives, people that came here to anchor light on the planet and basically have your body cleared out of all these old belief systems and all these old paradigms and all these old energies. It's hard because some days you wake up and I think of it like almost now the cleaner you get and the cleaner your vessel and your spirit gets, there's so much work happening in the dream state where you wake up and you're literally in a new reality. You're in a new reality. It's like you can't even get your feet straight and your vision straight, and you don't even know what's happening because you're overwhelmed because you're containing more. Like there's more in your container. There's more expansive levels of consciousness here, and you're just confused because you're at a new altitude. You're at a new altitude that's more expansive and you can see more because more has been cleaned out of you. More veils have dropped. So what often happens with me is this it's just this anguish of like one day you kill a bunch of ego and you're in that kind of stewing state and something's in retrograde, it's a full moon or whatever it is, that the little planetary cocktail that was designed by all of us in our divine blueprint and all that, and we knew the perfect ones we would need to set up, but you just have this, it's almost like, say you wake up a morning after intense ego death, there was a couple days of intense shadow work, intense ego death, intense kind of stewing in it, you're processing those emotions that are coming out of your body, and then you wake up the next day and you have almost like a lightness that you've never experienced before. And it's new and it's freeing and you feel like you can fly almost. But then what you realize is all that happened was like you removed one veil or layer here, so the ceiling became higher. But then using the same tools that I had from the previous time, you try to get the ego high and you try to say like, oh, I used to do this, this, and this because this made me feel good. And this ego thing made me feel good too. And the things that used to make you high in terms of like make you feel fulfilled and make you feel good and make you feel satisfied. Like, oh, I got recognition, or I got a compliment here, or this girl smiled at me. Like those little things that used to work even just yesterday are just gone. They're just shattered. They're gone. And you see that, oh, that was just an extension of some egoic attachment, and I formed my identity around it, and I was a slave to it. And then because there's so many deeply ingrained patterns and embedded patterns of ego, and we live in this very externally oriented society, oftentimes in 2018, that was like my main awakening year, where it was just like, there were just these massive implosions, like blowing up the side of rock faces, or like icebergs breaking in half, breaking off me, and these massive parts of me just dying off in this cleansing and shedding of illusion and all the fear that lives in your auric field that we volunteered to take on, to transmute, that every soul has, because there's been so much density in all the fields. So you just wake up the next day or something and it's a completely new reality, and you're traversing worlds, and it could happen in the span of like 3 hours. In the span of 3 hours, because you are quantum. The soul that you came here on a mission, you came here as a starseed, you came here with a very specific energetic imprint to anchor down on this earth that is very different from anything else and anyone else. So you're evolving at your own rate, and you're evolving at a quantum rate. So it's almost like you're just on a completely different track than most people. So I think for a lot of these starseed sensitive psychics, intuitives, planetary light holders, gatekeepers, um, you're almost like a beacon. And when you anchor down your love frequency, you're a beacon to everyone else. And what happens is you're just on a track of like, you might traverse entire worlds, or you might do like mature emotionally and transcend the amount of emotional patterns that might take, say, someone who's asleep, like who's unconscious, might take them 2 years to see. But you're going through it at such a quantum rate that you just shed like years of childhood trauma in the span of a day. And it's unset, like it's great, yeah, of course, but in terms of integration, it's jarring and scary, and you're like, whoa, like what happened? Like, what? And it just keeps speeding up and speeding up and speeding up, and the Schumann resonance keeps increasing, the vibration of Earth, and it's been hitting record levels this whole year. But there's just nowhere to go, because sometimes the way I think of it is kind of like, it's like you're just shot out of this cannon into the stratosphere, and you're like, yeah, that's great, we just transcended all these lessons, we're in quantum evolution, we're like leading the charge of this evolution of the heart, because it's what we volunteered to do on this planet. But you just have no reference points for reality, and you're just looking around. And I have some of those days where you just feel like you're tripping, and you don't even need the medicine anymore, because you're clearing out so much trash that has been in you, so much like ancient fear and ancient curses and ancient things that have just been generally in the source field of humanity for eons and millennia. And fitting all of that into this caveman skull and like your human processes, your conscious mind, is such a massive endeavor, because when those ego deaths, when you die, you have this. For me, it was almost like a pattern that I had of, when I would have a massive ego death, you feel much lighter. You feel much lighter. So maybe you don't get the same dopamine high that you would about a social media post, or like some girl that agreed to go out with you, or some achievement at work. Like these things just drop off, and you're like, oh, that meant nothing. That was just based in some like egoic like program of our society that is just worthless. It's not the real me. It's just some fake me. But I was chained to it, and it was my source of like meaning and my source of identity. And now it's gone, and you feel worthless for a while, because you're just like an empty, deflated balloon, and you're like, what the hell do I do now? What motivates my actions? What is the essence of who I am? How am I supposed to know all these things? Like, everyone else around me is still in that paradigm where it's all about external, it's more transactional, it's more codependent, it's more like we're just taking from each other energetically. We're not being our own self-sufficient, self-sustaining galaxies of energy, which is what you're going towards as a starseed, anchoring this new paradigm of like, we are the creators of our reality. We are taking in emotions. We are transmuting emotions. We are creating the reality before us, because we're taking accountability for it. So it's a little bit this feeling of uncharted waters, because these energies that you're experiencing that are now unbound by the constructs and this scaffolding almost of belief systems that we've been trained through all these lifetimes, and through generational program, institutional, societal, just generally what we're born into, what we volunteered to like have the chains on us, in a sense, metaphorically. Like they are actual chains in a sense, the energy fields, but to break them. But it's hard, because everywhere you look, you feel crazy. No one understands. No one has any clue what you're talking about, first of all. Like around you, if they're still like asleep and they haven't opened their third eye, they haven't like awakened to this truth of reality that we're eternal beings, and the ego death is hard because you're constantly just angry at yourself. And I used to just beat myself up so badly about, and it would take weeks or months, like at each stage you're beating yourself up so bad because you're like looking back on yourself from a day ago, a week ago, a month ago, and you're like, God, I was so deluded. I was just under the control of some belief systems and mind control and like the hive mentality, things that I just inherited in my DNA, or things that I inherited behaviorally because I'm a highly, highly sensitive soul who basically takes on the unconscious and takes on the thoughts and takes on the belief systems of anyone who's in my physical proximity, even anyone who's on earth. I feel the emotions of the collective every day. They have the power to, I'm so sensitive to the collective energies that they have the power to make me super hyper charged up and also super weighed down, like I have weights on my neck. And that's something I wasn't able to see because I was under the control of all those programs and all that external identity attachments, that I really am affected a lot by the collective energies and the Earth's energies and all types of things. So it's a little bit like ask every time ego dies, you have that lightness. So then you want to get high again. Your tendency is to want to get high again from an external attachment the next day after you went through a little round of ego deaths, because you're like, what am I? I don't know what I am. What am I supposed to base my worth off of if I'm not basing it on achievements, if I'm not basing it on competition, on judgment, on, having some girl love me, or these people like me, or these people are watching my video or something. And you just feel it's all worthless. And it's this like deflated balloon where it's a listlessness where some days you're so empty and frustrated and angry that you don't even feel like, you're so depressed and you don't want to do anything, you don't want to go anywhere because you're like, my whole life is a lie. Everything I've been doing up to now is a lie. Everything I thought I was, all this like this game we play, these characters we play. And some days I think you just ask, as it's all being stripped back and ripped out of you, like you ask, why am I even here? Like, why did I choose this life experience? It feels so empty and pointless when you go so deep into the shadows and you empty all that trash out of you that's hiding in the basement and like those belief systems, and you really, really, really start another veil, another veil, another veil, another veil, and just keep going deeper, 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 rediscovering the truth of who you are. And the endless amount of programs within programs within programs within programs of brainwashing that are based in this kind of ego, narcissism, look at me culture that we have, especially me. Like I have it my generation, I'm born in 1990, but I probably have that programming way worse than even people that are like 10 years older than me. It's in me. And then the people that are 10 years younger than me are like, they have it even worse. They're just this narcissism culture where you're just hooked on your iPhone and you think fame is like fame is like a god. Fame is like our idol. So the challenge within the ego deaths is kind of you're operating in a new landscape. There are new controls. It's like you're at a flight panel and you have to learn a completely new language the next day. And you're like, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. You learn that a lot of things that you thought you were doing out of love and that you thought you were doing out of kindness might have been codependency. They might have been people pleasing. They might have been disrespecting yourself, because as a highly sensitive empath, you have this, we all usually suffer from that people pleasiness, where we just so desperately want to soothe other people that we put them before us, and you don't realize, like, in a sense it's vain. You don't it's not like you intended to be vain, but almost like after a while you just see that you've been giving people the benefit of the doubt for like the thousandth, hundredth, thousandth time, and you finally get to that level of self-respect where you can break free of the enmeshment traumas and the enmeshment and the codependency of being the one who sues them, of being the one who's always wrong, of being the one who's always apologizing, always pandering. And you see, wow, okay, it's not my job to save them. And at a certain point, it becomes disrespectful to yourself to not speak your truth. And you have to be in your power, and you have to conserve your energy. And you have to see that there's certain people, being nice to them and soothing them and all that and telling them what they want to hear is not serving their soul. It's not what you came here to do. It's not what I came here to do. Your ego might like that. Your ego might like if I tell you, if I apologize and I fake and I wear the mask and I pretend I haven't experienced all these things and don't step into my power and stand in my truth. Your ego might like that, but it's not serving your soul. Because you can start to see that we're just playing characters and roles for each other, and none of this is really real. But there's this weird you're teetering between worlds of like, so many times this last year or two, I would think of it as this washing machine from the beginning of 2018 to now, July 2019, the end of July, after the intensity of these two eclipses and just everything about these 2 years. There's so many days where you empty your vessel so deeply, and we went so deep of digging out all this trash that was in us, and you don't realize that was like consuming all of your energy. So you have these huge voids of new energy and new rooms of your consciousness that are freed up. And it's a little bit like you're a baby. You're just like a kid who's like 15 years old, and you're kind of a novice in terms of all this. And you say you lived in your parents' house or whatever, and you have this little room, and you live in a very little house. And then all of a sudden, in terms of consciousness, you're just given this huge mansion. You're just given this huge mansion with like all these fancy appliances and like a couple new cars and a couple new, a new backyard and a watering system. And you have to maintain the cars, and you have to like explore all these rooms and maintain it. And that's what your mode of operation is now. And you're kind of clueless. You're like, what the hell do I do with all this information? When you're finding out that you're the creator of your reality, and you're literally like, this is the Matrix, and you are Neo, and we all are, and you're infinitely powerful. Your higher self is placing people in front of you, and you have all this power, and you see the wheels of the universe turning. You're almost like, during awakening, you're like, shit, I can't handle all this. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do with all this power? Yeah, it's great, but it's like a huge responsibility to see everything. You see everything. You see behind the veils. You see why people do the things they do. You see how like almost hopelessly enslaved people are to unconscious patterns just because they surround themselves with people that have the same unconscious patterns. And it's like you're looking at people, and it just feels like you're looking at people that are in a prison. And you're like, I was in that prison. And why am I the one that gets to wake up to this? And you don't. And I have to watch loved ones and people I consider family and close, and you're just, it's this divergent, you're diverging in timelines. And only now can I see how, like now that we're almost climbing out, like I feel like I'm back on land again for like the first time in a year and a half or 2 years with these energies, and like it feels like we're climbing out in terms of collective, like it's beginning, the action portion is beginning, but you almost, only now can I see that how crazy I really did sound to my family and how I'm like, oh yeah, of course, I do sound like, if I was them, I would definitely think I was crazy, because your reality is just transforming, being exploded. Like the death and rebirth is happening so fast. It's like this quantum light speed evolution that's happening, that spiritual awakening can seem so much like being a bipolar schizophrenic. And that's probably the way my family and the people around me perceive it, is mental illness, mental breakdown, because of that paradigm where you have to fit into this box and stay the same forever, That's what mental health is in our society. But I not only get it now, I can have empathy for my family and not be angry at them anymore like I used to be. Because I see that they can't help it. They can't help that. That's just the level of consciousness that they're perceiving from. And they're really doing their best. And like, I can finally see that we're coming out of the shadows, that that was another egoic attachment, that in the midst of all these ego deaths and identity crises and the deaths of these attachments and these things that used to motivate me, like attention and power and competition and things like that are so programmed into us in the society, I can see that I had to truly, truly let my family go, in a sense. Like, I had to let them go in the sense that I so desperately wanted them to see me and understand me and understand all the things I've experienced in my reality, the destruction, the evolution, the change, literally like the essence of what consciousness is, the essence of what a self is, what love is, what eternity is, what infinity is. These things that you need to die so many times to understand. You need to die to who you thought you were. And it all feels like death. It feels totally like death. Many, many, many deaths. Because you're dying, and then you have to watch the thing that you thought your family was, and the system of society was, and your family structure, and your friend structure, and community, and everything. Just everything about reality just implodes and smashes into 1,000 pieces. And it's happening, just never ending. It's never ending. Just death, rebirth, death, rebirth, death, rebirth. And so what I had to realize is that was another egoic attachment. Thinking my family would ever understand, or that they needed to understand. I had this attachment to thinking that if they don't understand me, then I can't feel good about myself. So I was tying my worth to my family. And if you're going through that, I would say it is heartbreaking in a sense. It really is heartbreaking, because I already was like the leper, the outcast, the one who is just dancing a different dance, speaking a different language. Like, I already was that. So this has all been preparing. I've been being prepared for this. And I know my higher self and my higher guidance was the one who was orchestrating all this, like repelling people from my energy. And it was all, what I'm saying, it was all meant to happen this way. People were meant to think I was weird and meant to like look at me like I'm crazy and all these things, because I wouldn't have been able to step into my power the way I have had it not happened. So it's tough, because you really, really, really have to let your family go and accept that they are doing what their soul intended for them to do in this lifetime. And you know what I mean? That's when sovereignty of souls has been a big topic for me this year, in terms of humility and not trying, because I used to be very almost zealot-like, where I wanted to preach to everyone about how they need to take psychedelics, or they need to do this, or they need to do that, or it's a matter of life and death, or to my brother or someone that you don't care about me, you don't want to understand me, you're lazy, you don't want to go to these deep places with me. And I had to understand that people will never learn that way when you force it. Trust me, I've tried thousands and thousands of times smashing my head against the wall, trying to preach to people, trying to tell them this is the way it should be. But after a while, when all this ego dies and you learn that it's not worth your time, it's not worth your effort, it's not worth your energy. And you have to accept that even if someone like my brother or whoever like these people I love who I so desperately want to experience this spiritual awakening and these deaths and this awakening to the truer nature of reality, and that we're all like in this trance that where we can't access our deepest, most powerful heart, because of the layers of programming. But what I had to realize is that my whether they do it or not, like even if I had, say, by some stroke of miracle or something, my entire family decided to embrace the path that I was on and do the psychedelics, do the meditation, do the healing, do the whatever it is, they would still be, each person in my family or each person that I'm trying to convert in my kind of crazy need to control people would have been, they're still experiencing their reality as a completely separate dream, as almost a completely separate operating system. And that's something I couldn't see until all these layers have been peeled back of like, the nature of consciousness is that everyone is going to be able to control what they see, what they feel. And at a higher level, they're almost mandating it. They're calling in experiences. And that their higher self really is at the wheel, even when it seems like they're not. Like all is happening according to the divine plan. And they will be taken care of no matter what, which is deeply soothing and reassuring in my heart. So it's hard because it's like you're learning to drive a new car of consciousness in a sense every single day almost, or every single couple days, because you're in this quantum evolution where you're just dying so fast and you're like, where do I go from here? What am I supposed to do? Why am I even here? Like you feel so worthless. It's like when a heroin addict or an alcoholic is in a rehab and they have intense withdrawals. And then, they're sober for a couple months, whatever. A common symptom is they don't feel excitement for anything. Their chemicals have to readjust and they have to try to find pleasure in things and try to find fulfillment in things outside of what their old paradigm and programming was, which is a challenge. I know, because when I got sober a couple years ago, you just have to relearn a whole paradigm and because we're so used to this idea of like take and like ego highs and dopamine highs and achievement highs and external validation highs and transactional highs. It's just so embedded in our culture. And you're learning this language of like nourishing yourself, loving yourself, going deeper and deeper and deeper in love into yourself. And it's so hard because you keep trying, your programming keeps trying to get you to grasp at things. And you keep trying to get a romantic partner, a friend, or a belief system, a guru, or someone to pull you out of you. Because the spiritual awakening process is about removing all the veils to say, all right, you're coming in closer and closer and closer to you. All the ugliness, all the pain, all the trauma. We're welcoming it all home. All of it. And there's so many layers of like, you're like, I've been working my ass off. I go to the ends of the earth to heal and do all this. And I still can't get a break. I still have to watch my reality collapse like a 50-story building out of nowhere. Because when the universe just throws you those curveballs. So if you're going through that ego death, I would say it makes you humbler, and only now am I learning to, when you wake up and you just feel this rush of energy and the energy is completely different and you're lighter and what I used to do is be in a delusional mode where I would let it take me away and I would let ego hijack it in a sense. But now, because the universe, the divine mother, divine father, whoever, angels, spirit guides, the planets, this initiation into my power has required me to adopt humility. And I learned that I don't let ego hijack it as often. Sometimes I still fall into it, but now after so many ego deaths, like I needed tons of them because that's just what I requested in my soul's mission or whatever, where you finally start to learn that, like, okay, you washing that so deeply out of your body and cleansing it out of your body that's been in your whole life from the programming that, okay, all that fame stuff or all that external validation stuff, or that, treating a girl or a relationship like she's my god and then making that my whole life, or external things, none of that's ever going to fulfill me. So what the universe is doing is just humbling you and crushing everything in this painful way so that you get into a deeper relationship with yourself and you stop disrespecting yourself. You stop going for these external drugs of TV and binge eating. Binge eating is like the worst thing for me. I am a Hall of Fame level binge eater and sweet eater. It's such a deeply ingrained pattern of like suppressing my emotions, because I think it's such a rare thing for me to be in to be in my happiness, being in my shine is such a rare occurrence. That's why it's such a brand new experience for me this year in 2019. I feel like I'm only now starting like to really smile with my whole soul in a way that I never, ever have. Like smile with a beam of sunshine right out of my heart. And you finally start to see that, like, we're coming home. We're coming home to our true selves. This is the mission. This is what we came here to do. We're warriors. This is what we are, and this is what we will become. There is light at the end of the shadow work tunnel, I promise you. And your soul might have been very diligent, and I know I'm very all or nothing. I'm very perfectionism, that type of thing, almost bordering on masochism. It becomes an obsession, the workaholism, where you can't experience joy, but you're like, maybe your soul was so intense that maybe you picked the extra cleansing plan or the extra deep shadow work plan because you knew that when you started coming home, that when we got into this final stretch where we take our power back, we take the earth back and anchor down these frequencies of love, you knew it. And that's what took you through all those times that you were crushed and you were devastated and you felt the earth beneath your feet, like, and you just felt so detached from your body. Spending all this time, starseed, spending all your time outside your body, floating, just being just bombarded by the violent energies of this world. But you knew, like, and it's finally starting to happen, and I know it is, and we're coming out of the shadows, we're coming out of hibernation. It's this homecoming to the true self. And all that pain, all that ego death, all that anger, that residual anger that comes up when you see the ways you've been giving your power away, the ways you've been people-pleasing, the ways you've been muting your true self because you had an egoic attachment to being liked and being polite and fitting into this little false structure of your family or your community that says you need to think these things and you need to believe these things. And you thought you were actually like being a good guy, and you thought you were like performing a virtuous act by silencing your real truth. And the amount of rage that can bring up is just so, this last year or two, it's been so intense. The highs and the lows and the highs and the lows. It's like you're a drug addict, and the drug is ego. The drug is ego. You're weaning off the drug of ego because this society taught you that it is real. And that's how we relate to each other. We sell what is in our souls and we give that away for the quick dopamine high of this transactional society, of fame, of recognition, of the little hive identity, the agreeableness, the going with the flow, saying everything's nice, saying everything's good. But that's not what I volunteered to come onto this planet to do. I came here to bring something new. And if you know that in your heart, and you've experienced this just like me, I'm sure you've experienced tons of anguish and pain and being ostracized and all that. Just know that I appreciate that, and I know that's helping me, and I know that's helping me every single day. We're all doing this together. We are lightening the density of this earth. And every single soul is so important to that. So, and I think it becomes to the point where you can't, this ego, like 3D world where everything is transaction and like, it's hard, it becomes harder and harder to like be spending your time around people who are still in that world, because it's just like they're trying to pull on your energy, and they're trying to like, not intentionally, but it's almost vampiric, because that is what the matrix kind of is. Everyone takes each other's energies, and what happens in this transaction is you think it's real, and you think all these things that make you feel fulfilled are real, but they're just enslavement to belief systems. And it's just that everyone else has bought into the belief systems just like you. And when you don't want to give your energy to these people anymore, you don't want to play the game, you don't want to like pad up each other's egos and be in this false paradigm anymore, you receive a lot of backlash from people you love, or people like they just don't understand anymore, because you don't need them in a sense anymore the way you used to, because you're in your power and you're a self-sustaining ecosystem. You're bringing and anchoring down in your power, in your truth, your own energetic frequency. You don't need to drink from other people's energy. So ego deaths are hard, but it is so much easier to operate without ego. Like, there are those moments when an emotional trigger of a loved one, someone say like who really likes to push your buttons or is just very dysfunctional themselves and likes to put other people down and is like in this like false power structure thing, whatever it is. There's those moments you have when you hear that energetic trigger and they're trying to push your button, or they're just doing this unconscious like pattern that they have of whining or moaning or gossiping or whatever, or trying to trigger you and take your energy, like prod at you and take your energy out of you by getting a reaction out of you. That's how they feed. Even if they will never admit that, they get your energy when you react. Just like a drug too. So those moments when someone does that to you for like the billionth time, if you've known them your whole life, and you don't react, like that charge is gone because you've healed it, or that part of your ego died off, like the charge is completely gone. There are those moments where it feels like I want to get up and dance. I want to get up and dance and like sing a song of celebration. And no one else understands. Like, I want to just go have a party with myself and go to the beach for 5 hours and just like be in my harmony and be in my joy and be in my love, because I know that was just some massive thing that was lifted off me. And I got the opportunity to see that, oh, there's no charge there left anymore. I just transcended a massive, massive lesson. And I just let that go. That's proof that I let that go and I healed that, because I'm not tied to it anymore. I'm not tied to this like hostage situation that a lot of relationships are in this world that are transactional, because people aren't loving themselves. They're not forgiving themselves. They're not looking into themselves. They're just looking at you. And this is what I did too, because I was under the control of all these programs and belief systems that, oh, poor me, and all these people and family need to treat me this way, and it's a losing big game. I tried to do that for years, trying to make people treat you the right way. It'll never happen. You need to treat yourself the right way by not enabling people that are stomping all over you, and not giving them access to your energy, and setting clear energetic boundaries, which is something that was always a challenge for me, because I'm used to be the one that gets walked all over or is too shy. So it's just a different paradigm, because what starts to be your pleasure becomes more consistent. it's like a more consistent baseline that is not so subject to other people's opinions and a little dopamine high here and recognition here and achievement here and casual sex with this girl or this relationship, or it's just this roller coaster ride. And yeah, it's painful detoxing off that drug, but now you have such a more powerful foundation down there in your heart where you're not swayed by people that are trying to trigger you, that a girl that rejected you, someone who thinks you're weird, someone who doesn't like my videos and is like, I don't get this, Pete, like I'm not into this. Like fine, I used to think everyone needed to like me because I was in my ego and I was in my self-importance. And it's a lie. Not everyone likes you, and not everyone needs to like what you like and be into the things that you're into. And I finally had to let that go of like, yeah, I have my people that are gonna resonate with me deeply and my soul family, and then there's people that just won't get it. And a lot of people are in your family and your community, and you have to, like, when you're stepping into your power and in your truth in a less egoic way, you just accept that, and it's not personal. It's like, thank God not everyone has to like me. Thank God I got that weight off my back, that 1,000-pound boulder of thinking that everyone needs to like me and I need to say all the right things to fit into my family's extremely conservative belief systems that are almost like that little inner child of mine is still hiding in there, like, oh, is it okay that I said something that's not like perfectly about this God in the sky and the 10 Commandments and about, you know, just being perfectly obedient to these traditional values? And like, I had so much of that to heal even, and that had to go too. That had to be knocked out and exploded and destroyed to find the true me that's in my power, not the me that is a slave to my family's belief systems. And a lot of people don't, most of the time, you don't realize how enslaving your family's belief systems are because you're in it. It's a hive. So the pleasures are much more expansive, and they're less like, say, just swimming in the ocean can become something that is so nourishing to your soul. Getting your bare feet in the grass, hugging a tree, seeing a beautiful sunset, seeing a mother and her children laughing together at the park, or people watching in the park, and you're just seeing people have a good day, and it just nourishes your soul because you're like, okay, humanity is just doing its thing, and we're all perfection, and we are seeing the divine in each other. We are not giving into fear and bullshit. And there are these little pleasures that just, they start to like overtake you almost, this awe that you are meant to experience from the flowers, from people, from seeing people's innate beauty, even when they can't see it. Because by activating it in you, you are unlocking that code for humanity. So when you learn this new dance, it's such a pleasure to not be so self-important anymore and not, like, yes, it's painful when the ego dies, but after it, you're just like, well, now I have more freedom to maybe put out a different video about something that maybe I would be too scared to before because I'd be afraid to be mocked or judged. But you realize that people that mocked you or judged you are just coming from a place of their own fears and their own belief systems. And it's not even personal. And they don't even really hate you, and they don't even really have malice to you. It's just belief systems that are in them. At a soul level, they love you very much. And when you start to access that part in you, you can start to just, it's like, even when people are playing their little human game and playing their little conscious mind game where we're so self-important and all of us are so obsessed with our image and all this, there's that beautiful freedom in just having this profound attachment where you're just, we're doing the whole little conscious mind human game here, but you can start to communicate higher self to higher self. And be like, yeah, I know, maybe you're calling me weird, or maybe you're pissed off about something I said that triggered you, and because I'm a deeply emotional and this is like part of what I signed up to do, but I know it's not personal. And I know I know you really still love me. And yeah, you might have some belief systems that taught you that I'm separate from you for some reason, but I'm not. We're the same. We are of the same essence. We're divine. We love each other. We're all one. And that's it.